Hi everybody, welcome to our review of Top Gun Maverick. Hope you're doing okay out there. Before we get cracking, don't forget to pop over to our website, check out thescriptdepartment.net for all of the stuff going on with our tame group of screenwriters and the global network there. You can also pop backwards in time and see Caleb and I discussing Top Gun the First. Top Gun the First? I don't think it's called that. It's just called Top Gun, yeah. Top Gun the First. And see what we thought of that in the last episode of Screenwriters Rewatch. But now we are facing the future. We are hoping not to crash and burn once again as we have a look at Top Gun Maverick. Today, I'm joined once again by Caleb to revisit, not to revisit this one, but to have a look at this one for the first time. And also we're joined by Brad to hold us apart as we scrap over the whatever it was we disagreed with the other day. So there we go. Hey guys, hope you're doing okay.
Yeah,
good. Loving life. Good. What did we think? Caleb, I'll go to you first. What did you think of Top Gun Maverick? Yeah.
Ooh. I saw it in the drive-in. So I was at the very back of the drive-in. So I told myself to calm down. I'm gonna go see this in IMAX for the effects, and to just focus on story on this viewing, because it was basically like watching on an iPhone. So
how did that go for you?
Do what?
How did that go for you, focusing on story?
It was, like I said, I had to tell myself to calm down. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. It has its problems. I think, like, it's still, it's not like the creme de la creme of like screenwriting, but sure. I do feel overall this script is smarter than it like lets on. Mm-hmm. Like, it knows what it's doing, and it kind of shows its hand a couple times where it's like, yeah, I know this is Top Gun, and we know it. But then there's some really nice character moments that kind of push it ahead of, just like a typical remake. Or sorry, a typical sequel, not a remake.
Yeah, for sure. Brad? Thoughts?
Yeah, I think Caleb hit that on the head there. Like, that it knows what it is. This film and this script in particular knows what it is. I think I spoke to you earlier about it, Marcus, and said that the level of cheese in the dialogue is palpable. It is really. There's a lot of fromage going on in this script, but
it's a nice mature cheddar for sure.
It's Top Gun 2. How would it not be the Top Gun sequel without cheesy dialogue? Like, it knows what it is. I mean, the action sequence is like insane. There was a lot of air punching going on in the theater that I watched it in, and a few whoops, not too much, like, yeah, but there was a bit of excitement going on, which I like. Lots of people leaning forward in their seats, and there was definitely an effect. I like that, where it has an effect, whether you're crying or leaning forward or whatever it is. There wasn't really any tears in this film, unfortunately. No. But I'm not a big open crier anyway, so that's good. I was happy about that. Then, but yeah, thanks. But yeah, action was amazing. Script was cheesy as hell. So there was definitely it felt like a sequel to Top Gun 2. Yeah. Like Caleb said, there were a few bits in it that didn't feel super great. Like, I think we'll probably go into like some of the imperialistic stuff later on. Let's not start with that. Yeah. But there were it knows what it is, and it wasn't ashamed to be that, which is one of the things I liked about it.
Yeah, I agree. You know what for me was the thing. I saw this really late. It was I think it was like an 11 p.m. showing of it or something like that. So I came out. It was after midnight. The roads were clear, and I've got like a long stretch of A road. Like not quite motorway or freeway for you guys in the States, but it's a nice dual carriageway, and I flew down there, and I felt like I was Maverick. And you know what? And I think that's what this film does. Is it does this in such a visceral way, and it makes you it makes you feel excited, and I think that's where, because there's I'm not even going to pretend like I'm not going to compare this to the first one, because how could you not? I think for me this one grabbed me in a way the first one didn't. It excited me in a way the first one didn't. And I think whilst there is a sheen of mature cheddar over the top of the script and many of the set pieces going on there, I think it was dialed back from the original, and it was an interesting retake on the idea of what Top Gun is. And I just enjoyed the hell out of this film. I really did. I enjoyed the hell out of it. And you know what I think, and I think in no small part to so let's get into it. Let's get into the mechanics of this. So you've got Rooster, who is Goose's son. So Goose is the ghost of Goose. Goose's ghost of Goose. Goose's ghost hovers.
By the ghost of Goose.
Yeah, he glides like a ghoul. Over the ghost of Goose glides like a ghoul. I can't get any more G's out of that.
Gregariously.
He hangs around this film, and it's an interesting thing to do, because that really is the heart of the first film. But you have that shot at the end of the first film where Tom Cruise, or Maverick, throws the dog tags off the side of the carrier, and signifying that he's kind of done with his thing, and he's ready to move on. He's ready to fly again. And yet we pick up some of that grief here, and I think they do an interesting thing by introducing another conflict between Rooster and Maverick. What do you guys think of that additional conflict? Because I've heard people come down on either side of this as a writing technique.
I quite liked it. Again, it's Top Gun 2, and it's not ashamed of what it is. So it fits in the universe of whatever universe we're in for this thing, because it doesn't feel entirely like the real universe. There's a cinematic universe somewhere where these characters live, and I liked it. There was definitely, as we've seen with some of the big franchises recently, particularly Star Wars, where they're almost mirroring what's gone before. Like the beats of it, the pattern, the structure, it mirrors it in almost every way. There was a conflict about Goose. Again, another conflict about Goose. There was a tops off, sweaty game of ball at some point. And they're just mimicking the things that we've seen before, because it's almost like it's the next chapter. It's the next generation that are doing it. So I don't dislike that it's his son that is the source of the conflict.
So given that there's enough conflict knocking around to sustain this with the death of Goose and the inclusion of his son, do you think that what do you think of the decision to add that extra layer of the papers being pulled as well? Because I've heard people come down on either side of this one.
I can see why they might think that there's enough there, but I would argue that there's not for Maverick, because that allows Maverick to have agency of doing something within or between these movies. Because if he hadn't had done that, it would just be, oh, you got my dad killed and that's it. Whereas right now it's Top Gun Maverick, he's the protagonist, and so like it's based on his actions, which I like the notion that he doesn't want to let Rooster go, because he doesn't want him to die because of the past trauma. I just think it's a little more nuanced, and so I liked it personally. I liked that they had the conflict. I went in not watching. I think I had seen a trailer in the theaters. I hadn't seen the first Top Gun at that time. Didn't really know who the characters in this one were, and how they I didn't know who Miles Teller was. Then later on I heard Goose's son is going to be in it. So going in not knowing much, I was pleasantly surprised that they handled that storyline the way that they did. Especially I didn't even know that there was going to be conflict between the two. So I really enjoyed that part. And there's a great moment where, um, in the end, where where he comes back, where Rooster comes back and saves him, and he runs, and Tom Cruise runs at him and like shoves him down, and he's like, I saved you," or whatever. And it just that's where the script for me was like tipping its hand really hard, like, because it's like these characters are the same people, and it's like they're both fighting to be Maverick. um
The
and so
the
but
scene you just described, Caleb, was that was one of the funniest parts for me, because there's the beat afterwards. He pushes him down, says, "What are you doing?" He says, "What were you thinking?" And he's like, "You told me not to think." And then there's that really weird silence. They're both like,
yeah,
"Yeah,"
Oh,
and then
yeah.
they're like,
Yeah.
"Good to see you, man." He's like, "No, good
Yeah.
to see you." That was the timing of it was great. It was really, really funny in the middle of like they're possibly going to die in this
Yeah.
tundra that they're standing in. Like, it's great. Like, that was wonderful. That was a great scene.
I think that's where the script really comes alive, isn't it? It's in that third act where they're running around, they're trying to get back, and because it's when it starts to do its own thing. It's when it starts to actually identify as something other than just a Top Gun sequel, and it's not beholden to that original film anymore. Though of course it is. It starts doing something different, and I think that's where you get the modern sensibility of filmmaking and writing coming in there, because especially with that kind of break, that humor moment, that's almost like something out of a Marvel movie, isn't it? Like that, like the quippy sort of moment there, like, "You told me not to think." Oh yeah, I don't know what to do with that.
Good work.
You know, and then yeah, great, okay, cool, yeah, you're right, okay, cool, let's go do that. Okay, you know, it's like I can hear that in a modern Marvel movie, and I think that's where the script that's where this script starts to work. I think before it, you know, they do. I mean, there's a bloody montage of Top Gun in it, and I thought I admit I have to say
it is just the opening, right? Is that the
oh
original
no,
opening?
that's oh
they've just
oh yeah.
it was. I'm sure it was the original opening, because I was looking at it thinking, is this the new opening or the old opening? I haven't. Don't quote me on that. I was like, what? This is the same opening, and then they have the Top Gun description on screen, and then it turns into Top Gun Maverick. It's either shot for shot or it's just they've lifted it.
I think
it's shot for shot. I think, but
because it's even the dudes in the glasses like taking notes and stuff as if it's like a football game or something. I just remember that so vividly from Top Gun, which I haven't rewatched before this, but I just know I feel like I know it so well. Obviously not enough if it's not this shit. But yeah, it's to your point of it doing its own thing, Marcus, that I think that's what the pulling the papers brings to it, because otherwise it's just a 30-year-old grief that is just still there, that was at the end of the last act of the second half of the last film. And I think the papers thing, again, because this is like a true blue hero, sort of hero's journey story, you know, love, loss, and redemption, that kind of thing. And that is what it's supposed to be. So to have the hero taking the hit for Meg Ryan, who's meddling, if you ask me, taking the hit for Meg Ryan, who said she didn't want him to go in, is oh, okay, he's falling on his sword here. Great, I get that message, but I don't know if you could have got that without this extra little bit. You couldn't have got this extra bit in there.
It certainly gives more depth to the character, no doubt about that. I agree. For the record, I think it's a great. I think it's a great choice by the screenwriters. I've heard and read some critics saying, "Well, why bother? You know, it's all there already," which is what I'm referring to when I say, you know, I've heard people come down on either side of this, because it does seem to have divided people a little bit. I think I agree with you guys. I think it gives him agency, it gives him more reason, and it gives Rooster another reason to, you know, beyond Goose's death, to kind of be angry with him. But also, it still comes out of Goose's death. It's still a choice Maverick made in order to because Goose died, and you know. So I think it still kind of connects to that. So I think it's a really smart choice, that for sure. Do you think so? Just referring to our rewatch video we did the other day, Caleb, I can't remember if I actually mentioned this or not, but I found the love story in OG Top Gun, as the kids would say, a little lackluster, and I felt like it kind of was thrown in there last minute. Just I know it wasn't, but it just I don't know 80s cheesy sheen. What do you guys feel about the love story here? Because this is not Charlie. It's a different character. She is referred to in the original Top Gun. She's the Admiral's daughter that I think Maverick gets into some kind of trouble for or some such. So she is there. It's buried, but it is there. It is there.
I didn't pick that up, but yeah, I know that,
Yeah.
about the Admiral's daughter. Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
her,
yeah.
is it?
That's who this
okay.
is. Yeah. So how do you feel about this? I feel like this is much more successful as a love story, but what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, there's an interesting dynamic in it with the daughter, who seems to be the more mature of the three. Like I like that. There's a level of, it seems all fun and games, and then there is a level of risk that pops up in it from time to time, and you can tell that there's a fragility from whatever's happened before. But I think it's quite similar for me to the last one. I mean, there's a level of no, Tom, okay, Tom, and it's there's a level of I don't know, male gaze to the relationship, even to the point where there's a weird shot I found it where it's face to face and they lie down slowly, and it's like this is an 80s love scene. Look, and I again, I don't know if they're trying to do the whole retelling of poetry, as you might you might say. They are mimicking what we've seen. Even his jacket, the bike he rides in on, the start of the film, like there are things from Top Gun 1. So yeah, it's interesting that they've chosen to do that with a love story as well.
Yeah, that first one, Charlie is just very much a thing to be idolized, and look at this smart woman who is also really attractive, and look, I'm gonna hang out with her. It's the classical stuff. I felt as though this character, whose name right now escapes me, it seems to happen a lot at the moment. She has a bit more agency. I feel agency is kind of the buzzword of the day, I think, for these characters, and certainly if we did in our conversation we had earlier on, Brad, as well.
It was Penny.
That's it. Thank you.
Penny Benjamin.
Penny Benjamin, has a little bit more agency than Charlie did, and I feel is better handled. But then I agree, probably not well enough. It's certainly not the strongest point of this film. But then I think if you're looking for strength in characterization from Top Gun Maverick, then you're probably in the wrong place anyway.
So I think where she does really kind of support Maverick's character is whenever there's that montage of whenever after he does his 2-minute run, he goes like it's a place, like the bar and Penny are a place and a person for him to go and like externally show what he's going through images, like or through scenes of him going and doing things instead of sitting in his hotel room pondering where we don't understand what he's thinking, or you have bad dialogue where he says what he's thinking. So I think that's kind of what she's there to do, almost, for like in some scenes.
Yeah, I mean there are a number of scenes where he talks to himself, right? There is,
well, true.
Don't get fired on the first day, Maverick. Oh, well done, Maverick. And it's like, do people do that outside of 1989? Like, that's not. So I think you're right to have the bar is a way for him to talk like about his inner feelings, because you're in an environment, a military environment where you don't do that.
Yeah,
so, I think you're right. There's a mechanic to Penny and the bar.
Yeah,
particularly that help him expunge those feelings, I guess.
For sure. He talks to Goose a little bit as well, I suppose, when he sat in the cockpit and that sort of thing. But yeah, no, I agree by and large. I think Iceman, Val Kilmer, returning for a photograph and a cameo on this one. How did we? I think it's really interesting that to take the former enemy from that original film and to make him the protector of Maverick and Maverick's career, I think that's a really smart decision, and absolutely paints Iceman as the real hero of the original Top Gun, because he clearly has himself together in a far greater way than Maverick ever did. What did you guys think of that?
So do we know, was there any, because I know Val Kilmer's had health issues in the past. Did that weigh in any to this?
Yeah.
For him not talking or?
Yeah. So, I mean, his voice is almost gone.
Okay.
So he has a very
I knew he had some
strange sort of raspy voice. I think he has a stoma from an operation. Like he's gone through a lot. And it was interesting how they handled that. I think. I mean, it's like that. I think they went one step too far with it. Like, it's come back. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Great, stop there. But they went. Speaking's also very hard. Also, his voice is quiet, and it's like, just stop.
Yeah.
We get it. Just say it's back. He's ill. He can't talk.
And then you have the typing.
Yeah, and it's like great. And I like the fact that they allowed that Val Kilmer spoke in this film, because obviously these films like this are just showered in Hollywood sheen. So have someone who's impaired in that way to be able to speak in their normal voice is, I think it was a wonderful thing. Whether his lines were cheesy or not, it's another thing. But to hear Val Kilmer talk,
it's very touching,
and be Iceman.
Yeah, it kind of strips away like all of the production of movies and really kind of shows the the actors, the people behind the characters. So, and I love Val Kilmer, like just great. So it was nice to get that. It was interesting in terms of story relation to how they handled his character, and then even like having him when does Iceman pass away in the movie? Is it like near the third act, like right before the third act?
It's pretty soon. It's pretty soon after he leaves the his front room with a computer. You get the impression that he might turn around and he's dead in the chair before he's left the room. Like, it happens very fast.
It does. Yeah.
It's like divine intervention.
Yeah, but I do like this is a good like way of using cell phones and texting. I think they incorporate that, and then it really pays off for me once he sends the text like, we need to talk, and I think he says, I'm not asking, or something like that. And then that's when it goes into the scene of him and his wife, and Iceman's wife. And so like, I think it's set up and paid off pretty well. So
interesting text message as well. We need to talk. Obviously, you can't talk. So I think they would have probably handled that, the writing and filming of that, with kid gloves, because of the heritage that's gone into it in this franchise, and also Val Kilmer, like just Val Kilmer. I thought it was. I was smiling at that part, because I knew, like you say, the actors and the people behind what's going on in this film, and that felt an important scene.
I agree. It was very touching, I thought, and Val Kilmer did it very well. I think it was a lovely moment in the film, and I agree. It was touching.
If anything, I would have wanted more.
I suppose. Yeah. I think possibly in another world we would have had a little more, perhaps. But yeah, it was lovely that. So we, in our Top Gun conversation, Caleb, we were talking about whether or not Top Gun would make it into the script department archives hidden underneath the RAF base. So the question, it's not a question I normally ask in just a straight review, and I'm not going to ask it deliberately of this one, but we kind of had a little conversation there about how I think that I think neither of us would have put Top Gun into the vaults. I don't think. Did you put it in there? I can't remember. No, I don't think either of us did. But we had a conversation. Yeah, we had a conversation about whether Top Gun Maverick would go in there based on um, the merits of the original, the great stuff of the original. It's a very complicated and weird conversation to have. Go check it out if you haven't seen it. But I I kind of just want to. I just kind of want to get into that a little bit because there's a heritage here, and we've done this before, where with this hypothetical nonsense department vault thing, where we've put great film trilogies in there, even though like The Godfather Part 1 and 2 would go in there, but Part 3 perhaps wouldn't, even though you'd have to include it because it's part of the trilogy. Is that the case here? Because the heritage and the way that the original Top Gun gets into the zeitgeist and is so much in the public mind, but this is definitely, I think we all agree, a better film. So I don't really know what question I'm trying to ask here, but in terms of like the heritage, when a sequel outstrips the original, can it do that without the original laying the groundwork? And does this film, that's what it was,
Does it work on its own?
Does it stand on its own? What do you think?
You want me to answer?
Go ahead.
So I think whenever we kind of had our back and forth in the first episode, you said yes and I said no.
Mm-hmm.
And so for sake of argument, I'll say no. Because I don't know where I fall, but I will say no because without your love for Maverick going into this sequel, like there's all the little stuff that's going on in the first one, which we talked about in the first episode, where it's like it's not a lot going on. There is the love that you have for Maverick's character and the nostalgia for Kenny Loggins and the airplanes and the feel. You have that, and I think that is present here, to where going in, even though you can understand Goose's story and Rooster and Maverick's like relation going in, it kind of gives you that. I think there is a bit of emotion that you have going in, knowing what this is going to explore thematically, like fatherhood. I while it does show some stuff, I think you have to have that to really take it to the next level. But the script is so good in this, to where, like, with what it's doing, to where that's why I say, for the sake of argument, because I think you could watch this and still get it.
Yeah.
I think it would feel different, right? Though, if you hadn't seen the first one,
because
you know who these guys are, and you know what they've done, and the scene of the Goose story still would come across in standalone just about, but it doesn't really mean anything because you haven't experienced that loss, which I found quite sad, even as like a 12-year-old or however old I was, I can't remember. And it was sad, and I think it's an interesting thought to try and imagine it without the original. I don't think it would work. I just don't think it would work. The same as the Terminator 2. That wouldn't work without the original. You know what I mean? It's just,
I think
you can't have it.
I think the reason I ask is because we live in a world of sequels to prequels that are actually in themselves a sequel to an original that was based on a graphic novel. We live in this kind of world now, and we live in a world of sort of fan service and things like that. And I think what this script does, whilst it is packed full of that, and it's packed full of nostalgia, and it's packed full of these elements that are absolutely heightened by the original. I think what this does I find really interesting is that it doesn't always rely on that. And it does, and certainly when you get to that third act, it does go and do something different. albeit they end up flying the plane that they flew in the original film. So not entirely, but it's still. I think there is still something there that they're trying to do different. They're trying to break away. I think. I don't know. Look, I'm playing devil's advocate. Of course it works. Of course it works better without. Of course it relies on the original. I know that. But I do think, I don't know. I do think for the first time in a while, this is a film that can work without its original film. You can't watch Obi-Wan Kenobi, the series, without prior knowledge of Star Wars. You just can't. Like, you can't, you can't look at, say, I don't know, The Hobbit with, maybe you could, but it's not enriching. It's not rich enough on its own without prior knowledge of the Lord of the Rings. Whereas this, I think it may, at times, I think it is rich enough to stand alone. Just about.
I think, as ridiculous as this may sound, that the first Top Gun, given this now, the first Top Gun is almost like a glimpse into Maverick's like psyche of what he's dealing with in this, which is ridiculous to say because of what Top Gun is. But
so I heard a really interesting fan theory about this film. That is, when he's flying is it Dark Star at the start?
Yeah.
And it breaks up and it crashes. He dies.
And
this is all a death dream,
of course,
as he's passing over. And but all these things happen on the turn, like in the exact right moment, like the moment where he's about to get court-martialed by Ed Harris, and he's like, "Oh, I just received a call, saved your life," and then something else happens, like right on the moment that it needs to, and he's safe. And at the very end, Hangman comes in the second the missile, and it's like, this could be a death dream.
That is dark.
It could be. I found that hilarious. Yeah,
it is. Oh, I quite like it. I quite like it. Go okay.
So like while watching this, I was a little, because it had a lot of hype going in, and so the first 2 acts I was like, okay, this is fine. Like, I mean, it's solid, but once it really hits that third act, it is pretty amazing. Whenever, like, in terms of special effects and stunts, I mean, I guess it's mostly stunts from what they're saying. So, but like, yeah, it really takes off.
Nice. Oh, good.
That was unintentional, but no, like it's really well done. So
yeah, for sure. I think we've done it. The last thing I'll say is Tom Cruise standing in his Dark Star uniform in the diner, and he says, "Where am I?" And the kid goes, "Earth." Oh man, I love that. You know what? That's always been a dream of mine. When I was an actor, I always wanted to be in a film somewhere where I got to walk into somewhere and go, "Where am I? What's going on?" Or something like that. And I just loved seeing it in this film because it just has no place. It doesn't belong here. And yet they found a way of just doing that for the hell of it. And I thought, yeah, man,
it's hilarious.
I'm really into that.
And we've got to agree that the real winner in this is Tom Cruise's surgeon. That guy looks amazing. He looks like he's 30 years old in this film. He's running around with his top off, like he's in great shape, and he looks like he's getting younger.
He does. He does.
I almost forgot that I loved this story. So this actually has a plot, whereas like the first Top Gun kind of doesn't have like a plot.
Yeah.
But I love this plot in Star Wars that we got a 2-hour plot out of it in this one.
Yeah.
You gotta fly down this long corridor.
Trench run.
It's the trench run. You gotta fly, use the Force, Rooster. And you gotta get that bullet right in, or the missile right into that hole. And it makes everything explode.